The atmosphere at the stadium was absolutely electric as Yoshinobu Yamamoto took the mound in the eighth inning. Every eye in the stands was locked on him, every fan holding their breath, sensing that something special was about to happen. The Dodgers were clinging to a narrow lead, and the tension in the air was so thick you could almost feel it pressing against your chest. Then, as the crowd fell silent, Yamamoto unleashed a pitch so fierce, so perfectly timed, that it cut through the cool evening air like lightning. The sound of the ball hitting the catcher's mitt echoed through the stadium like a gunshot. It wasn't just another pitch, it was a statement, a declaration of power, control, and composure. Even from the stands, fans could see the determination in Yamamoto's eyes. His body language said it all, calm, focused, unwavering. He knew this was his moment, and he wasn't going to let it slip away. As the next batter stepped up, the entire infield tensed. Yamamoto adjusted his cap, exhaled slowly, and set his grip. He wound up and threw again, the seams of the ball spinning in a blur under the floodlights. Another strike. The batter didn't even move his bat. The fans erupted, chanting his name, their cheers rolling like thunder around the stadium. Every pitch from Yamamoto that inning carried purpose. His delivery was smooth yet explosive, combining finesse and raw strength. The opposing team tried to read him, tried to predict his next move, but Yamamoto's rhythm was unpredictable. One moment he'd throw a blistering fastball up high, the next, a sharp breaking slider that disappeared right before the batter's eyes. In that eighth inning, it wasn't just about baseball mechanics, it was about heart. Yamamoto was showcasing the very essence of Japanese pitching excellence, precision, discipline, and unwavering mental focus. Each throw was crafted, deliberate, and charged with intensity. You could tell he had studied his opponents meticulously, reading their stances, their hesitations, and their weaknesses. The crowd's reactions became part of the rhythm. Every time he threw a strike, the roar of approval grew louder. The camera panned to his teammates in the dugout, their expressions a mix of admiration and awe. They knew they were witnessing something truly remarkable, the kind of performance that defines careers and becomes part of baseball lore. As the count reached 2 strikes on the next batter, Yamamoto stepped off the mound briefly, rubbing the ball in his glove. It was a small gesture, but it showed his composure. He wasn't rushing. He was controlling the pace, dictating every second of the game. When he stepped back up and threw the next pitch, it was pure perfection, a high heater that the batter swung at helplessly, missing completely. Strike 3. The stadium erupted. Fans stood, clapping and shouting his name. The camera zoomed in on Yamamoto's face, calm, almost emotionless, but his eyes said everything. There was pride, determination, and maybe even a touch of satisfaction. It wasn't arrogance. It was the quiet confidence of a man who knows he's at the top of his craft. Even commentators could hardly keep up with his pace. Words like dominant, flawless, and masterclass poured out as they analyzed his every move. The radar gun had flashed 98 miles per hour, but it wasn't just the speed that impressed, it was the command. He was placing the ball exactly where he wanted it, teasing batters into swinging at pitches they couldn't hit. Behind the plate, the catcher barely had to move. The trust between pitcher and catcher was absolute. Each sign was a silent code, and Yamamoto responded with pinpoint accuracy every single time. You could sense the chemistry, the unspoken understanding between them, built through countless hours of practice and mutual respect. As the inning went on, Yamamoto's rhythm only sharpened. His mechanics were fluid, almost artistic. His follow-through ended with the same smooth motion every time, his right leg crossing neatly over his left. It was like watching a dancer execute a perfect sequence, power and grace in perfect harmony. Then came a dangerous moment. A hard-hit line drive shot toward the mound. The crowd gasped. In a flash, Yamamoto raised his glove and snagged it midair, saving himself from what could have been a serious hit. The entire stadium exploded in cheers again. His reaction time was incredible, pure instinct, honed from years of discipline. He smiled faintly, tipping his cap toward the crowd before turning back to face the next batter. That one play seemed to energize him even more. His next pitches were even sharper, faster, and more precise. The opposing dugout was visibly frustrated, players shaking their heads, unable to find a solution. Yamamoto had them completely under his spell. It wasn't just the fans who were impressed, even the umpires nodded subtly, acknowledging the level of mastery they were witnessing. When you have total command like that, it's almost impossible to be ignored. Yamamoto wasn't just pitching, he was performing, orchestrating the inning like a maestro conducting a symphony. Every strikeout added to his legend. His teammates were on their feet, clapping, pumping their fists, and yelling encouragement. The Dodgers fans in the stands waved banners, their voices echoing through the night. You could feel the momentum shifting, not just in the game, but in the entire postseason. By the time he faced the final batter of the inning, the pressure had reached its peak. The count was full, and the batter looked desperate, gripping the bat tightly. Yamamoto stared him down, his expression unreadable. Then, with one smooth motion, he threw a devastating splitter that dropped just before the plate. The batter swung and missed. Strike 3. Inning over. The roar from the crowd was deafening. Yamamoto walked off the mound slowly, head held high, his teammates rushing to greet him. The cameras followed every step, capturing the sweat on his face, the calm smile breaking through at last. It was a moment of triumph, pure and unfiltered. Back in the dugout, even veteran players patted him on the shoulder, congratulating him. "That's how it's done," one could be heard saying. The pitching coach just nodded, proud but unsurprised. They all knew this was what Yamamoto was capable of. Analysts later replayed that inning again and again, breaking down his mechanics, his control, and his pitch selection. The sequence of pitches told a story, a chess match where Yamamoto anticipated every move before it happened. He didn't overpower hitters with brute force alone, he dismantled them with intelligence and precision. In the press box, reporters scrambled to capture the magic in words. "Dominance defined," one headline read. Another called it, "the eighth inning that silenced doubt." Fans flooded social media with clips, highlighting each pitch, each strikeout, each roar of the crowd. Yamamoto's performance became the talk of the night. Commentators compared it to some of the greatest postseason innings ever thrown. For a moment, it felt like the entire baseball world was united in admiration for what they had just witnessed. But what made it even more special was how Yamamoto carried himself afterward. No big celebration, no showboating. He just sat quietly on the bench, towel over his shoulders, nodding as his teammates continued the fight. That humility, that grounded attitude, made fans love him even more. When asked about the inning later in interviews, Yamamoto simply said, "I just focused on each pitch. The team needed me to deliver." It was a modest response, but everyone knew it took something extraordinary to perform like that under pressure. The replay angles showed every nuance, the sweat dripping from his brow, the veins on his forearm tensed with power, the perfect snap of his wrist as the ball left his hand. Each frame was a testament to years of discipline and training. By the time the game ended, fans were still buzzing about the eighth inning. That was the moment that defined the night. Not just a win for the Dodgers, but a performance that would be replayed for years to come whenever people talked about clutch pitching under pressure. Coaches from around the league would later reference that inning when teaching young pitchers about composure and execution. "Watch Yamamoto in the eighth," they'd say. "That's how you control a game." Even opposing players couldn't help but acknowledge his brilliance. Several of them were seen shaking his hand after the game, showing respect for his skill and sportsmanship. In baseball, moments like that transcend rivalry. For the fans, though, it was pure magic. Parents lifted their kids to see him walking off the field, knowing they had just witnessed something they'd talk about for decades. Yamamoto wasn't just a player that night, he was an inspiration, a symbol of discipline, precision, and courage. The stadium lights dimmed, the crowd slowly began to disperse, but that energy lingered in the air. It was one of those nights that reminded everyone why baseball is called a beautiful game, unpredictable, emotional, and utterly captivating. And as highlights continued to roll across TV screens and online feeds, one moment stood above all others: Yamamoto's blazing fastball in the eighth inning, the pitch that stunned the crowd and defined an unforgettable night in baseball history.